Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Con Report wherever you get your podcast. You're watching on YouTube. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media. That's AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. I have a story up now on Sam Howell's progression from the spring and throughout the summer and why Ron Rivera made the decision or announced the decision he did today. Of course, that is what I'm talking about, is that Rivera said that Howell is going to be their starter going into the season. No surprise. I think the only people, to be honest, who are surprised are those who haven't followed this team on a daily basis, maybe are more national folks, or just kind of paying attention on the periphery. And because I'd get asked, even on SportsCenter, what about the quarterback battle? Well, it never was a true quarterback battle, because what they wanted to see is, did Sam Howell lose a job? And the answer was no. That was the key. Like, he always had it. The key was he going to hold on to it? Would he lose it? And he did not lose it, which is why Rivera wanted to make the decision today. They waited to this point because, if you recall, there were a couple of times in the offseason, even during training camp, where Rivera would point to those 2-day joint practices against Baltimore as a defining measuring stick for Howell and for this decision. And it's funny because, you go back to 2020 when they had Dwayne Haskins here, and he said that there was going to be a quarterback competition. Well, it never materialized that way. Part of it was, and they didn't learn enough about Haskins during the summer, because you didn't have preseason games. You didn't have the joint practices, and you relied on practice. They wanted to give Haskins every opportunity. They gave him every rep to try and win the job. 4 games in the season, they realized he wasn't ready. With Howell, the big difference was they had a lot of ways to measure his growth. There were more. They had spring practices. They had a preseason game, and then they had these 2-day joint practices. That's why they're able to stick with the plan they had for him. And while there was talk of a competition, it never materialized because they were able to get a good read on what Howell can do. Now, the other part is they really do like Jacoby Brissett, and they feel with him, they possibly have a top 3 backup quarterback in the NFL. He's been very good for Sam Howell. He's been a mentor for Sam Howell. He's good in the room. He understands how to prepare and be a true pro. So Rivera has said that he feels really good about their quarterback room, and a big part of the reason why is Jacoby Brissett. But again, this just never materialized into a competition. Everybody here knew it. You knew it because you've been paying attention. But it is funny how beyond here, people who don't pay attention every day, and I don't blame them, but they looked at this differently than I think the rest of us did, because it just never went there. But why is Howell the starter? Let's talk about that for a couple minutes. Not why was he named the starter. We knew that was going to happen, but why is he in this position? And the key word for me to tell you is, one, growth. He has grown throughout this. He's grown a ton since last year at this time. He has grown since the end of the season when he started against Dallas. He has grown from the spring. He grew from the summer. He's grown from week to week. I'll give you one example. I was going to talk about this a little bit, but I'll tell it right now. So last week against the Browns, and I pointed out to you, there was an RPO run where he doesn't get the proper drop on it. It was the first run play. That was where Leno gives up pressure inside and Robinson gets stuffed. And it looks like, the tackle just got beat on the play. Well, yeah, but Howell doesn't take the proper footwork. He's supposed to drop and sell the pass. It's an RPO. You've got to sell the pass. You're not going to sell it by just keeping your feet there and keeping your eyes down. So if he drops, then you allow the back to have a flatter plane, which allows him to avoid that interior pressure and allows Leno to seal the end and allows Robinson to get outside. Just that little bit of footwork can cause those kind of issues. And, again, people are going to think, the tackle or this or that. It started with the quarterback's footwork. But against Baltimore, what they liked is better footwork overall, more consistent, and in the RPO game. And there was one play in particular, and I talked about this the other day. I have a video up of it on the Empire, the page where you go to the shorts, see the pass that he throws to Jahan Dotson on the outside. Look at the footwork. He takes a couple drops. and he freezes, and it's an RPO. You have the back who can take the flat plane. Now he pulls it out because he's got his eyes up, and then he hits Jahan Dotson out in the left flat. It's a play where Kyle Hamilton's diving and barely misses the ball, but it starts with good footwork and the ability to hold him. Because if you don't take the footwork and sell, run, or pass, then they can react accordingly. But when you do the right things, then it makes everything go easier. So that has been a big part of it. And the other part is he's not finished. They don't feel like he's finished. They feel like he hasn't hit it. He's clearly not hit his ceiling. He's played one game, for goodness sake. So that's a big thing too. To me, one big thing is he doesn't look overmatched out there. He's not. He does not. I mean, there hasn't been a time where you're thinking like, oh my God, this could be a disaster. I have never thought that with this kid, because I think, and I've told you before, I think he has some really good traits that translate into NFL to being if nothing else, a legitimate starter in the NFL. And then to what level? A lot of other things will determine that. Offensive line, play calling, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But he has the traits to play well in the NFL. Again, let's go back. Let's go back to Baltimore for a second. And that first day, the Commanders felt like he did a really, really good job. That's what people told me. Second day, they felt like it was a good job. So not quite as well as the first day, but certainly a very good day. They liked how decisive he was. Again, the footwork more consistent. And I point out the RPO game. And Rivera did talk about, some things that, you got to do better with, and improve on. That was one of the things he had to improve on, was the footwork, and he did. And there's still more. Listen, and I'll get to this in a minute, but I'm going to get to some of the other, I guess, the flaws or the issues he's got to improve on. But they really like his smarts, how he works. They love the decision making. Again, those are all things that translate into NFL success. And again, I keep saying, I think the kid can play in this league. I don't know how good he'll be or when he'll get there, but he can play in this league. Against Baltimore, they liked the anticipation skills. And I brought up the Dotson play. That was an anticipation throw, but also showed really good arm strength. And there were a couple others. There were a couple balls to Curtis Samuels over the middle where they liked the footwork. It was proper, ball out in time, good rhythm, good anticipation. The throws in there like that. And just, that's what they want to see. The quick twitch throws, also part of what they like about him. And you saw that there was a play against Baltimore. They got to keep going back to that, because that sealed the deal. Had he not done well up there, then I think we're gonna have a different conversation today. But he did. He certainly, again, he didn't lose it. And Jacoby Brissett has been fine, solid, but he never got to the point where he was say, oh, you got to play him instead of Howell. And Howell never got to the point where he said, oh, you got to play Brissett. So that's why we're in this position. But also the quick twitch throw. So there's one play where he's looking off a guy, gets to his first read, gets to his second read, it's Terry McLaurin, boom, ball's out. That's the quick twitch throw. And that's one of the things that when Kirk Cousins was here, and I always bring up his name because, again, mid-round pick, whatever. But they always talked about Kirk Cousins' arm talent. And it was always it's not about did he have a howitzer? It's about the quick decision-making, the quick twitch throws. Kirk was really good at that. And this kid, I think, is really good at that as well. And you saw it again in practice today, a couple examples, one to Tinsley, another one to De'Ami Brown, where it's, you're going, boom, there it is, go. And I've seen that multiple times with Howell throughout training camp. And that's going to be a good attribute for him. And it's going to help him out a lot. Some of the issues that they see, they definitely feel can be corrected through experience and reps. For example, in the red zone against Baltimore, one of the things that stood out to them in the wrong way was that he was a little bit hesitant inside the red zone. So the play might be there, but he wasn't quite sure. So he didn't let it go. Now, you don't turn it over, and they liked how he took care of the ball up there. You don't turn it over, but you maybe cost yourself, it might be a 4-point swing down inside there. So they want him to get a little bit more decisive down in the red zone. So it's just something to watch going forward, but also because he's decisive in other areas, that's something that can be, I think, cured through more experience. And that's, they certainly believe that as well. But again, he took care of the ball. And I think The other thing they'd like to see is and pay attention to this, how this develops. Does he take the profit? And you always hear quarterbacks like Peyton Manning talk about take the profit, take the profit. In other words, take what's there. If it's your first read and it's only 7 yards, take the 7 yards, because you can never go broke taking a profit. And then just kind of nickel and dime, wait for your opportunity and go. So just that's something to pay attention to as well. I also like the quick game with Howell, and I think that's been very obvious during training camp. I think it's going to be a strength of this offense. It's something that when you watch what Mahomes did in Kansas City, they use the quick game a lot. So that's a staple of Bieniemy's offense, but I think it's also something that Howell does very well. They'd hoped they would get that from Carson Wentz last year. It did not materialize. They did not feel that Heineke was as good in the quick game, but they really like how Howell is there. And so I think that's something that has shown up throughout camp as well. The other thing is you look at the maturity of the kid. This is a kid who, when he was a freshman in high school, was his conference's player of the year as a freshman in high school, gets to UNC as a freshman, a true freshman, throws for, I think it was 38 touchdown passes, opening day starter, just wins the job right away, goes on and has a big year. The kid, and the word poised is used quite a bit with him. Terry McLaurin used it the other day. Jahan Dotson was using it today. And when you get that and the command of the huddle, it all adds up to a guy who, again, has a chance here. This kid has a chance. And the other part is you look at how he's taken this all in. Like, he's not sitting there celebrating the fact that, oh, he's the opening day starter. As he said, it means a lot, but this is only the beginning. And he said that I have a lot of work ahead of me. And so he understands that it doesn't end here. And this is something I always go back to Brian Mitchell with this, because I remember when I remember talking to Mitchell, B Mitch, early in his career here, talking about, draft status. He's the 5th round pick. And his attitude was always, some people think they've arrived when they got drafted. He goes, for me, it was just a start. And I get the same sense with Howell, because the kid has come a long, long way. So there you go. That's what you need to know about the quarterback decision, or just the quarterback. I say situation because we know what the decision was going to be. It was going this way the entire time. And it's certainly when they got through Baltimore, Cleveland, and then Baltimore, this was the only way it was going to go. But what they like about Howell and some of the depth of it, I just wanted to share that with you. There is still time for one more family adventure this summer. The country's largest climbing and zipline park is open 7 days a week until Labor Day. With 8 different levels, 16 courses, 250 climbing obstacles, and over 4,000 feet of zip lines, the Adventure Park at Sandy Spring, located in Montgomery County, Maryland, is the perfect place to spend the last few days of summer. Once you're back on the ground, head over to axe throwing and try one of their brand new games. You can play Battleship, Blackjack, throw at traditional targets, or even upload your own images. They are now accepting group and family reservations for this fall. Can't make it out before school is back in session? Not to worry. The Adventure Park is open Friday through Sunday every weekend this fall. To end the summer right, listeners of this show can now get $10 off any ticket by entering the promo code KEIM23DC at checkout. That's KEIM, K-E-I-M 23DC at checkout. There is still time to get outside and join the adventure at theadventurepark.com. Let's get now to today's practice. No, not full pads today. A couple guys weren't going. Tight end Logan Thomas still not out there, was doing some stuff on the side field. Chase Young, individual, not going through any sort of situation where there might be contact. Charles Leno was not out there. Not sure what's going on with him. He didn't do a lot. He did not play in the last series or two against Baltimore on Wednesday either. City Charles, I saw him out there, kind of rotated with Chris Paul at times. Then let's see, who else was there? Fadarian Mathis still not out there. Not sure when he's coming back. With Thomas, like, there's no reason for Thomas to play at this point. They know what he can do. Just get him ready for the season. I think the same is true of Chase Young. Just, I think, get him through and get him healthy. By the way, Danny Johnson he injured his shoulder because of the hit or the body slam. And, if I'm Washington, I'm really pissed about that play, because it's a play in practice. He picks him up and throws him to the ground. Now the kid's got an injured shoulder, and, he's considered day to day, but and there shouldn't be any reason for him to need to play in the final 2 preseason games. Quite sure he's going to get a spot on this roster. He's had a good camp, and I haven't seen anybody that you say, okay, this guy should be kept ahead of him. But you never know. But I don't think he'd have played in the final preseason game. But I'm guessing at this point that they hope that he can just kind of stick around or just not play at all the rest of the preseason and heal up that shoulder. But that was not a good play by Andrews, and it cost Danny Johnson. Also, tight end Cole Turner injured a finger during practice today after one pass thrown his way. They went and taped it. Was his one of the fingers on his right hand. They taped his ring finger and the middle finger together. After that, he went back in, so he was okay. I've talked a little bit about this about Turner, and just they want him to be a little bit better at anticipating maybe some of the collisions that are coming after the catch, allowing him to be a little bit better holding on to the ball. And we've seen that a couple of times where he got stripped. Whether in Baltimore he got stripped, in Cleveland he got stripped. Now the one time it was not ruled a fumble against the Browns, but only because the knee had just touched. You don't take that chance. So they want him to be better at absorbing the hit. And there was one play today where tight contested pass, ball's not caught. But then what you see is on a couple other throws, you saw the length. On a crossing pattern, you saw the length. He got his hands up, did a nice job getting away from the defender. And another time he had to reach back and use that wide catch radius to make the grab. They need Logan Thomas out there. Logan Thomas is still their best tight end. It's funny because you see people saying like, oh, well, he hasn't played, and Turner made a couple catches against the Browns. Thomas has to go. No, they need Logan Thomas out there. He's their best all-around tight end. Still, he'll be their best. To me, he's still their best tightly contested area pass catcher, and especially as a tight end in the red zone, third downs, whatever. He's still the guy you want. He just has to stay healthy. That, of course, is the big key for him. Oh, one other thing, and I noticed this today again, I've seen it a couple other times, is some of the hard counts by Howell. He's gotten his own D a handful of times. I think he got the Ravens one time as well, but that you saw it again today, and just wanted to bring it up because I think it's a kind of a veteran thing, right? But he does a good job with that. One of the things they did today, some one-on-one work between the corners and the defensive backs, and no pass being thrown initially. It's just getting off the line, working on the receivers, getting off the line, corners getting their hands on them. They had one time it was Christian Holmes against Terry McLaurin. McLaurin just kind of got him to the outside, and Holmes just missed him. And so just a good job by McLaurin, and it's good for Holmes to go against him. And I told you, I've liked what Holmes has shown this camp, especially on special teams. But I think he's been solid at corner against the backups. But that's the guy you also have to go against in a game if you're going to end up on the field. I did think that Forbes had one nice rep against De'Ami Brown. Felt like he did not open his hips too soon. Did a good job. Another time in teamwork, where one play that I liked with him is cover McLaurin gets off man coverage. McLaurin cuts inside and he drives on his inside shoulder, and then they can't throw to him because of it. So a good job by Forbes there. By the way, one of the things with Forbes that they noticed up in Baltimore, and this is why it was good to go against another team, because you don't know them, and it's a new receiver. He's going against Beckham at times, Odell Beckham. But there were times where they felt like maybe he's trying to play too much to bait the quarterback into a throw, maybe like what he could have done in college. A lot harder to do that here. So he did certainly had a few hiccups in that game, or in those 2 days, but again, good learning experience. So learn how to play maybe a little bit tighter, not leave so much space, allowing them to create a little bit more. And, you can't bait everything bait a quarterback into everything, especially at this level, can be a little bit hard. Also, defensive end Andre Jones got more reps with the ones today with Chase Young not out there. So that's obviously a very good sign for Jones. They want to see more of what he can do. Right now, I'd have him on the roster because he's shown that he deserves what could be the last spot along the defensive line. But I also wonder, whenever you hear about the defensive ends, they'll reference as far as guys in position battles, they'll say Smith Williams, Casey Toohill, Jones, and KJ Henry, all fighting for, one of those guys is going to get left out. And it's not a guarantee that it'll be the rookies at this point. Personally, I'd have Hill. I think he still flashes out there. And I'd have James Smith-Williams on there. They've been working Smith-Williams at times inside in a pass rush situation, similar to what they would do with F.A. Obata. Obata has a good camp, so to me, he's on that roster. Anyways, the guy to watch on Monday night, watch Andre Jones, because I think he's a guy that, again, they're very intrigued by. Really good length, good off the ball, could be a really good find for them. And I did tell you the other day that, Stromberg at guard, I like what I've seen from him at guard. And again, not that he's a future guard necessarily. I still think it's about, can he do it in the game if he needs to? But what he has shown so far is he looks okay. And I think, speaking of guards, I think one of the guys, and I was talking to Sam Cosmi afterwards, at how good he feels playing inside. So I know the line together has to keep improving, but I do think, like, Cosmi, I think, could be a good solid guard for them. He's got athleticism. He can get out in space, but I think he's also pretty good at absorbing hits, knowing how to, and being able to anchor and being able to handle some different kinds of defensive linemen. So anyways, but he's feeling more comfortable. And then the other one, this was Jamin Davis. I think I told you against the Browns, he had that one play where his leverage, if you see the receiver catch the ball on a flat route against him, they are okay with that. And that's what happened, is they're guarding the middle. They do not want the big play in the middle. Saw that again today, gets Antonio Gibson, forces him outside, makes a stop there. The other thing that was interesting too is, and this is where that communication comes into play. And on this play, this is in the red zone inside the 5. There was one time where there's a stack formation to the right, and Davis is lined up in man coverage against a tight end. Well, then there was a back, Gore on that play goes in motion to the backfield. Well, that changes the coverage. So Davis shifts in size. It changes everything. And what you hear is like, somebody on the line was like, let me know, Jamin, let me know. Or someone on the other side. And so Jamin's like, I got you. So that way the communication to know who has what, and nobody looked out of place or confused, but it starts with that kind of communication. And even after the snap, when Jamin starts going out to the flat, he is communicating that he goes, I'm out here. So that's that talk, but it's kind of cool to see and hear that during practice, because those are the things that you're not going to get a chance to know in a game, how it's going, but it's a huge, huge key for any team. So that's it from me. That's the practice report for Friday. Sam Howell's a starter. No surprise. Of course. I know you know that. I'll be back on Saturday wrapping up I'm expecting a padded practice in front of another big crowd. I think this is the last big day here. It could be 10,000 people out here again for the final one. So expecting some good practice stuff. I'll get that for you Saturday. Also going to play an interview that I did with Jeremy Reeves after my practice report. So I think you'll enjoy that as well. So there you go. I'll talk to you next time.